back, relax, and maybe get yourself a snack. Me and you gonna have a little chat about books. Hey guys! So I am here today to do a video about Twitter choosing my TBR. I put out a tweet a little while ago about wanting amazing science fiction and fantasy recommendations and hoping to pick up some new ones and maybe read some that are on my TBR, or be encouraged to read some that are on my TBR from Twitter. And lots of people responded, so thank you if you were one of those people, giving me loads of ideas. In fact, I had probably 3 times as many ideas as I do have in this video, but I kind of cut out anything that either really didn't sound like my thing that I'd already read, because don't need to read it again necessarily, and anything that was too expensive. So I think there was one book that was really pricey for some reason, probably because it's an older out-of-stock edition or something, and they didn't seem to have any newer ones. But I still am left with, I think, 14 books or 15 books that you guys chose for me on Twitter. So I wanted to make a kind of TBR. You may have seen that I've been doing the Book Tempters Challenge, which is a 12-week, 12-book challenge. And I kind of want to treat this TBR in a similar way because, as I say, I think it's around 14, 15 books. It's going to take me a while to get to them. Some of them are much chunkier than others, but I'm excited about them. So I think I spent around £40 picking up quite a few Kindle versions of books that were on the list that I didn't own, so that I could get them instantly and not have to worry about postage and delays, that sort of stuff. I also managed to pick up quite a few from my shelf, which were just on my TBR, so I'll go through those. And of course I will tell you guys a little bit about the blurb for each of the books and who recommended it to me as well. So we better get started. First off, I have to kind of give a shout out to Sam Hawke, the author, who is amazing because her first book I loved, but also recommended me about 10 books, which was really, really cool. And I've chosen to read quite a few of the ones that she recommended, so I'm quite excited. So the first one that she recommended to me was Empire of Sand, which I have definitely seen around but have not yet kind of picked up. And I've heard good things in general about this. I've heard that it is inspired by Mughal India, which sounds like a really cool kind of premise. And I believe it's a debut as well, which is always cool, by a female author. And we're following some sort of race called the Amrithi, I believe, who are kind of this outcast race. And Mera is the illegitimate daughter of one of the imperial governors, I believe. And I guess it's the story that she has. The people that she's from are kind of descended from desert spirits, apparently. And she, for some reason, comes to the attention of someone powerful, so she has to use the magic that she has inherited, presumably figure out a way out of it. It sounds pretty good and I'm looking forward to reading it. It's got a 3.86 average rating on Goodreads, and I've got quite a few friends who've read it and rated it very highly, so I'm looking forward to giving this one a go. So the next one that Sam recommended to me is The Ninth Reign by Jen Williams, which I'm very much aware of. I've definitely heard of it. I think I had a copy of it at one point, but I donated it to a friend who was really desperate to read it, and so I haven't read it. But I am intrigued enough to give it a go. I've read The Copper Promise by Jen Williams and I wasn't a huge fan, but it was her debut, and I think this will be a lot more of a complex fantasy than the first one that I read, so I'm hopeful that I'll like it. And I believe we're following a main character in this one called Tourmalin, and he's in a city where wolves are stalking the streets, but he has no desire to sort of sit around and sulk. He actually wants to live his life and be where the women are and the drink is flowing. He already sounds like a bit of a character, and I'm looking forward to kind of a story following him and seeing what misadventures he gets up to. Now, the next one she recommended to me was Black Wolves by Kate Elliott. I don't actually have Black Wolves, but I do have 3 of Kate Elliott's books on my TBR, so I decided the sensible thing, instead of buying Black Wolves and having 4, would be to read one of the ones on my TBR. So I'm going to go with the first book, I think, in her Crown of Stars series, and that is this one, King's Dragon, which I believe is kind of the start of her world. I think some of her series are set in the same world. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not quite sure I understand how it all links together. but I believe this is the first one I should read. And this sounds like it's a fairly stereotypical fantasy. It's based on the kingdom of Wendor, which is in turmoil, of course. And we're following a kingdom where the king and his sister have kind of been constantly at war or rivalry for who actually is going to take the throne. And it sounds like war is brewing. There are human and non-human entities who are going to get involved in the conflict. And we follow two main characters who are called Elaine and Lilith, who both have been picked out for some reason from the rest of humanity to do something. So it sounds like it'll be a fun kind of adventure story. This one is just under 600 pages, but it is a mass market. So I'm hopeful that I'll really like it. I do think I will like Kate Elliott's work. I've read one of her YA books and very much enjoyed it, and I'm very much excited to read her stuff because I know a lot of people who really love her work, and I don't know why I haven't got to it yet. So I'm hoping to fall into a little pile of like loving Kate Elliott's work because she has lots of books out. So if I do like her, I will be set for a while. The next one Sam recommended was City of Stairs by Robert Jackson Bennett, which is definitely one I've had my eye on for a while anyway, so I'm definitely excited to read this. It's been kind of compared to like Neil Gaiman in terms of weirdness and things like that, which sounds pretty good to me. I know a lot of my friends said that it was a very complicated, like a very complex but interesting world when they read it, and I've heard really good things about this. I loved his Boundary Side book, so I'm very excited to kind of dive into one of his other series and hopefully really enjoy this one as well. So yeah, looking forward to that. And then another one that I had got recommended was The Undoing of Arlo Not by Heather Child, which I have had on my TBR for a while. I got sent this by the publisher and I just haven't got round to it. It's about being able to reverse your last action, which sounds like a pretty interesting and probably terrible power to have, because I'm sure it's going to cause all sorts of ruckus and accidental stuff, and I'm looking forward to this. I know Steve is also looking forward to potentially reading this one when I'm done with it. So yeah, it's a fairly short book and it looks like it'll be a lot of fun, so I think this will be good. The next few that I was recommended were by Copratic, so thank you for recommending these to me. I have to say I love the cover of this one. It is The Wolf in the Whale. And what instantly drew me to this when I googled it was the idea that it is focused on Vikings, clashing cultures and warring gods, and it just sounds like it's ticking a lot of really cool boxes. There's also, I think, a main character who's inhabited by the spirit of the wolf, which is quite often a theme I find in sort of Nordic style books. So I'm very much looking forward to this. I've kind of been on the hunt surreptitiously for a book that does Vikings really well, because I feel like unless it's historical fiction, fantasy, I haven't found amazing Vikings yet, so I'm looking for it and I'm hoping this might be one of those ones. The next one on my list is The Book of Coley, which has been released very recently by M.R. Carey. I was actually supposed to go to a launch party for this one and I was very excited about it, but it got cancelled because of COVID, so unfortunately I didn't get to meet the author and see the book in the flesh, but I bought it on Kindle after it was recommended to me because it sounded like it would be my thing anyway. It follows a world where there is this very mysterious deep dark wood, and if you go into it there's all these vines that can choke you and things that can kill you, and it's pretty high risk. And I believe that we are following a young person who is not given a choice about whether or not they go outside the walls and into this forest, and it's kind of their adventure from there. I think it's the start of a series, which is good, and I really enjoyed the previous M.R. Carey book that I read, and I just think he does a fantastic job with like twisting kind of sub-genres into something different. So the Girl with All the Gifts was a really interesting example of that, and I'm very much looking forward to this new series by him. The next one I was also recommended by Copratic, and this one I was actually sent by the author a while ago, so I feel bad not having got to it yet, and I hope I can rectify that. I also think this has now been picked up by a publisher, like a traditional publisher. This is the original self-published cover, and it's by K.S. Veloso, and it's The Wolf of Oren-Yaro. I believe this one's a pretty brutal story. It's about bloody war of the wolves that tore the world apart, and a marriage of a son to the father's rival. But then this son disappears, and I guess that leaves a fractured land. So we go from there. It sounds good. I've heard really good things about this in general from people in the self-publishing and traditional publishing world, so I'm looking forward to it for sure. The next one was recommended by KJ Mulder, so that is this one, The Empire in Black and Gold, Shadows of the Apt by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the first one in his Shadows of the Apt series, I believe. It's a long series if I recall, and the books themselves are pretty chunky as well, but I definitely love Adrian Tchaikovsky's other work. Now, I have tried to read this book a couple years ago on Kindle actually, and I don't know quite what went wrong at the time. I think I just wasn't really in the mood for a kind of insectoid story, which is very much what this is. I seem to recall it was started out with this kind of warfare going on, and all of the people in it were kind of very insectoid in style and different kind of creatures, which sounded intriguing, but for some reason it didn't work. However, I do think I've come a long way since I read that many years ago, so I'd like to pick it up again and give it another shot, and hopefully I will be much more in the right frame of mind, and also I'm much more familiar with Tchaikovsky's work and how he writes, so I think I'll enjoy this one, fingers crossed, second time round. And another one recommended to me was Pushing Ice, which is by Alistair Reynolds. I believe this is a standalone book, and it's a story about a rock hopper ship who push ice in space, and that's kind of their job. But suddenly one of Saturn's ice moons kind of expels itself off out of its natural orbit, and the owner of this ship is kind of ordered to shadow it and find out what's going on. And this adventure becomes a misadventure very quickly. So that's all I know, and I've only read one other book by Alistair Reynolds, I think, but I enjoyed that. It was, however, a YA, whereas this, I think, is an adult, but it sounds like my kind of thing, and it's the first of the sci-fi books that I was recommended, so I'm pretty excited about that, and I'm definitely keen to give this a try and whether I like it, so I picked that one up on Kindle as well. The next one was recommended by Book Invasion, so thank you for this. I've never seen the cover of this, but I think it's really cool, and I've never heard of this author, I don't think, either, so I don't know where I've been, hiding under a rock as always, but this one sounds sci-fi too. It's set around dazzling space battles, it's the first in a series, it's got intergalactic politics and space opera warfare, and I believe it follows two siblings who were destined for greatness, but then one day one of the siblings gets gunned down in their ship and they lose consciousness and wake up 230 years in the future on a deserted enemy warship which is controlled by an AI, which kind of all sounds pretty intriguing and epic and very terrifying all at once, so I'm looking forward to this. I definitely did not know about this one before I asked for recommendations, so I think it's one of the first I'd just not heard of at all, and I'm really excited to give it a try. Actually, a couple of my friends who are bloggers and reviewers have rated it really high, and I'm looking forward to giving it a go. So fingers crossed this might be another series or another author that I haven't tried and that will be new to me but will hopefully be really awesome. The next one on the list was recommended by Joseph Ferdinand, so thank you, and that is 3 Parts Dead by Max Gladstone, which is actually a book I already had my eye on and that I was planning to give a go to, so I'm pleased it bumped it up that little bit more. And I believe this one is focused on the idea that a god has died and we have a student who is a necromantic practicer whose job it is to somehow figure out what happened and maybe bring them back. That first line is all I need to hear because that just sounds pretty epic. I like necromancy, like reading about necromancy anyway. The next one I was recommended was by Destruction SNA 1, I believe, and that was the final one in the Dragon Lords series, Bad Faith by John Hollins, which I do already own on my bookshelf and which will actually complete my challenge of completing a series, which I mentioned in another video, so it's definitely timely and great news that this is on the TBR and was recommended to me, and I'm very excited to dive back into this. It's a world of sarky humans and very dominant, evil kind of tyrant dragons, so it's pretty fun. The next one was recommended to me by Rachel from Shades of Orange, which I'm very excited about because I had not heard of this author nor seen this cover, which I think is actually weirdly trippy but very beautiful, and I'm very excited to give this one a go. It's by Nikki Drayden and it's called Escaping Exodus. It's about the heir to a biological city-sized starship, which already is a mouthful but sounds very cool. And I believe it focuses on a time where they are, as a clan, starting to finish up a ship which they have kind of excavated a beast for. So it sounds like the cycle that their clan is part of is to go and find a dead beast, live in its remains and strip its remains to create a ship and go from there. And this already sounds weird, like biological kind of science stuff, which is awesome. Not something I've read an awful lot about, and definitely something I'm keen to find out more about, so I'm hoping I'll really like this. It's again a new author to me if I enjoy it, so yeah, fingers crossed I'll really like this. And the final one I have on this list was recommended by Virginia McCain, so thank you, and that is Steel Crow Saga. And apparently this is a unique fantasy, which is a world where mechanical beasts fight alongside their human counterparts and the Empire is won with magical steel. There is a main character who is on a revenge quest, which is always good, and some sort of magic is involved in that too. And I think there's a lot more going on. I think there's a couple other characters as well, including potentially a princess who's a detective in disguise, which sounds good to me. So I'm looking forward to reading this one as well. In fact, I'm looking forward to reading all of these books, which is going to be a problem. So please, 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 in the comments below, let me know what I should read first out of this TBR. As I say, I'm going to probably stretch it out over a good few weeks, maybe a book a week for the next few months even. We'll see how I get on because I'll be reading SPFBO stuff alongside and we'll just have to see. But I think these books are going to be really exciting. I'm super, super keen to read them all and I'd love to have your thoughts. Also, please let me know in the comments if you guys would like me to do a BookTube Recommends TBR video after I've done this, and in which case I will think about doing that. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and I'll see you in my next video very soon. Bye guys!
Thank you for watching my video today. Go pick up a book, then come back and chat with me again.